Revalue gold and watch what happens. And look what they're slowly doing right now, turning up the heat on arbitrage. Silver's $1.50 higher. Gold is 70, 80 bucks higher right now in Shanghai. And let the arbitrage, those sophisticated traders that can access the COMEX, the LBMA, and the Shanghai Exchange, sell all of our gold and silver in the West to the Chinese, and bang, they'll revalue it. And they'll revalue it to a level that will immediately change the narrative.
This is Kaiser Johnson with Liberty and Finance, and these are the Miles Franklin Weekly Specials for February 12th through February 19th, 2024, while supplies last. First, we feature backdated 1-ounce Silver Philharmonics at $3.15 over spot with a minimum order of 50. We also have pre-1933 gold $10 and $20 Liberties at $99 over melt and $145 over melt, respectively. To order our specials or any of the many other options we have available, call us at 1-888-81-LIBERTY. That's 1-888-815-4237. We're available after hours and on weekends, and we look forward to speaking with you.
Welcome back to Liberty and Finance. We are always glad to have this weekly returning guest. Andy Schectman is the CEO of Miles Franklin Precious Metals. He joins us for this weekly market update. Today is Tuesday, February 13, 2024. Andy, thanks for coming back on Liberty and Finance.
Always my pleasure, Dunnigan. Great to see you again, pal.
I can't believe it's only been like 4 days since we had you on, because we had a late interview last week rather than on our usual Tuesday because you were attending a conference. Actually, no, you were skiing.
I was on a ski trip. So, yep, it was a nice respite. It's crazy, when you come back after taking a few days off to see how fast the world has spun and how much has happened. It kind of shocked me a little bit, just trying to catch back up after 3 days of taking my head, pulling my head out of the books and the internet and focusing on, relaxation and skiing. But here we are. And as, like before, the world is just spinning faster and faster and faster.
Maybe even because of that, it's so necessary to take those breaks, to really do some self-care. Because I remember when we were in the pit of the COVID panics and everything, we had some in-person meetings, and it was hard to even turn off the constant barrage of news in order to even to focus as a team on some important topics that we were discussing together. So my wife and I, even after our move to Central Florida here, after a month of doing nothing but unpacking boxes and cleaning and everything, finally just laid everything down and went and played, took a hot tub and played some pickleball. And you just have to do that, or else you just lose it.
It's an interesting point that you bring up there, especially back then when I was living in my basement in Minnesota, literally 18 hours a day. I look at some of those videos, I was green. Literally the color of my skin was olive, like green. And, you come to this point in life, and I have a really hard time delineating between life and work. It's the bane of my life. I sleep poorly most nights because my head doesn't stop. But the same thing is true here. You do something for so long, Dunnigan, and try so hard to make your mark in this world, and not only make your mark, but you have been blessed with the ability to make a difference in this world. At least I think I am. I feel that way. I try my best to do that. I think you know me now well enough as a person to know that that's an honest assessment. And you ask yourself, the old adage, make hay while the sun shines, or whatever. Do you want to have regrets? It's really hard. It's really hard to try and do this every single day and still be a father and a husband and a friend and have a little bit of a social life. And, the things that maybe a lot of people take for granted. It's weird. It's just a weird situation, but I feel as though when I say the world is spinning faster and faster, it's almost akin to me becoming more and more concerned about what I see. And, it's like I said last time we talked, the fact that this is so minimally spoken about in mainstream circles is really shocking to me, because I'm now at the point where, I can't shut my brain off ever, because I'm continually thinking about what's coming. And, maybe I've become married to my own ideology. I don't know. But all I can tell you is that what I see coming has not gotten any better, regardless of what the numbers say or the price of the metals say, or, in fact, what I see coming only reinforces everything that we've talked about for the last 3 years. And I have a feeling it's going to come a lot sooner than people think, as we are sitting in this really quiet zone where, other than the fact that you have 85% of the public thinking that the president is too old to run for a next term, and there's at least a little bit of recognition after all of this time that, yeah, his cognitive ability is declining amongst the mainstream. But most of the other things that we talk about day to day to day, Dunnigan, when I have the chance to talk to people who are very well read, just reading the wrong stuff, they look at me like I'm crazy. And they say, no, I don't believe that. That's not true. These things can't be true. And that's why as a contrarian indicator, I just think that I think we're closer to some things breaking than people think. And that's why I'm just so fortunate and happy and grateful to be able to come and chat with you each week and have these discussions, hoping we're making just a little bit of difference out there, at least for people to do their own due diligence.
And again, I think that one of the things that you mentioned there in passing has certainly been the driving factor for Liberty and Finance for our channel, and that is the knowledge in your bones and in your gut that most people, the vast majority of people, have not heard the proper warning. When we interviewed in the past Brad Harris, the founder of FullSpectrumSurvival.com, he talks about the official warning will always come too late. And then you zoom into the microcosm. Just today, Gregor Mannarino puts out, the higher than expected CPI inflation numbers, and suddenly the markets are dropping, and all in sympathy all around the world. People are, maybe interest rates are going to spike. They did. The 10-year note spiked, and the markets all dropped. And yet the officials were telling us up to the day before. It's like up until the storm came and Noah was building the ark. They were saying, everything looks fine. And so they did not expect this. Unexpected. He said, really? So I think it's the awareness for both of us that many, many people are in harm's way that drives us to continue. And
what have we been saying? We've been saying interest rates are not going to go lower, at least not now. And inflation's not going away. And as have all the guests on your channel. And the majority of them anyway. And so I think that's the thing. It's being, if you're not a contrarian, as Rick Rule says, in this environment, you're destined to be a victim. And I think it's easy to be a contrarian when you open your eyes and your mind and your heart to other viewpoints. And I'll never forget, your son said something to me on an interview a long time ago, and it really resonates with me here. Your young son, Elijah, who is wise beyond his age, said to me, if we don't listen to other viewpoints, we never grow. And it's very true. And if you don't open your eyes and open your mind and open your heart to listening to other viewpoints, you end up really not only becoming stagnant, but in this environment, if you don't roll with the changes, the probability of being rolled by them grows by the day. And I think that's the kind of stuff that I think people need to try and understand. People on your channel don't have that problem, but every day I try and, with people in my daily life, I try and open their eyes. And sometimes I think it's fruitless and other times I don't. But by and large, we are still the very, very distinct minority. And, I guess we do the best that we can. And I just wanted to say I'm grateful for being able to do this each week and analyzing the world that seems to be spinning really off its axis and faster and faster and faster each day.
Well, and in the face of that, I think it's even ever more so important to take care of yourself. Stephen Covey, in his book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, one of them is sharpen the saw. And that means even if you've got a huge task to do of sawing down a huge redwood tree or whatever, no, you wouldn't do that, a huge oak tree. You've got to stop and make sure that you stay sharp and do self-care and take care of your family and so on. Otherwise, it'll be compromise the mission. You can't deliver the mission if you're not taking care of yourself. You just made me think you've been called a prophet by viewers on our show, especially when they have seen you getting fired up sometimes on our live chats. There's a quote here that reminded me of Jeremiah from the Old Testament prophet. In Jeremiah 7, he's talking to the Lord. He says, "You overpowered me and prevailed. I'm ridiculed all day long. Everyone mocks me. Whenever I speak, I cry out, proclaiming violence and destruction. So the word of the Lord has brought me insult and reproach all day long. But if I say, I will not mention his word or speak any more in his name, his word is in my heart like a fire shut up in my bones. I am weary of holding it in. Indeed, I cannot."
That's how I feel. I do feel that way. And almost embarrassed sometimes when I say it in the wrong settings. But, when I listen to what Putin said to Tucker Carlson, I'm like, well, geez, that's what I've been saying for the last 3 years. And I got about 100 emails saying that. And you don't have to be an economist or a president of a nation or particularly astute to see the crumbs that have been laid at our feet. You just have to be able to try and form them together. And, I think it's one of these deals where I look at all the daily news and I try and intertwine it into a message to give it a little bit of a fresh spin. But the reason I stay focused on something that has become a little bit more narrow in scope is because I think it's the only thing that truly matters. And while there are a lot of people out there like Peter Schiff who will do the micro day to day, the numbers of employment and the CPI and GDP and PPP, all of this stuff, that's important. I have a hard time focusing on the minutia. I just look at the big picture. And, when you see 35 other countries formally apply to the BRICS and 20 plus informally apply, when you see trade being done on the M-Bridge, usurping the SWIFT system, when you see trade being done in other currencies that used to be done in dollars, when you see repricing of metal $100 an ounce higher and gold and $2 an ounce higher and silver on the Shanghai exchange than in London, or all of these things in and of themselves are important news stories. Put them together into a bigger context and they become very concerning. And that's really, I guess, what I have been trying to do. And so, yeah, it's I think that we're getting to that point where things are going to become very, very evident to people. Well, let's look at today as an example. Yeah. So, you have inflation come down, but it's still higher than expected. And the markets get smacked, right? And it's interesting. You look at a chart and they come straight down. That's not how markets work. In this case, it is in the price of metals. But look, it's a lie. We've had prices that have been rising at an annualized rate of 3% or more now for 34 straight months. And even as inflation has come down by the CPI, prices are still rising. And when we talk about a 3.1% inflation on the CPI, here are the numbers right now over the last year. You have car insurance inflation up 20.6%. Transportation inflation up 9.5%. Hospital services 6.7%. Car repair 6.5%. Homeowners inflation, 6.2%. Rent, 6.1%. Food away from home, 5.1%. Think McDonald's. Have any of you have gone through a McDonald's drive-through lately and order a Big Mac value meal and it's $14, $15? When I went to high school in Minnesota, my high school, St. Louis Park High School, was across the street from the first McDonald's in Minnesota. And we had an open campus. And I remember in 10th grade or 9th or 10th grade, which would have been in, the early 80s, with $2, you could go in there and get, 3 hamburgers and a small fry and a small Coke for $2.50. When you talk about how insidious inflation is, regardless of the fact that we're being lied to by the CPI numbers, people just don't get it until they start to reflect upon it from years past. It's so slow that you really don't get it. But as we're being told, inflation is coming down. Everything's great. We're not going to raise, we're not going to raise rates yet, though, because it's still a little stickier. Look, at 3.1%, they're still over 50% away from their target. But you look at all of these things, and it's interesting, a few of them like rent and homeowners and food. These are the things that are conveniently not in the inflation numbers. But the point of it is that they're telling us that inflation is coming down from much higher levels, yet the things that we need, car insurance, transportation, hospital, car repair, homeowner, rent, food, all of the things that we need, not that we want so much, but that we need, are not coming down. In fact, they're going higher. And I think it's important that when you look at gold, and most people that don't understand what the heck gold is view it as an inflation hedge. That's what we've always been told. So I think it's kind of funny that as the prices get smashed in the derivative gold market, when the CPI market comes back a little hotter than expected. It's supposed to be the other way around. So when you talk about manipulation, when you talk about the markets being controlled, it's very upsetting. And I think to a lot of people, this is what dissuades so many people from accepting precious metals as a hedge, because here you have numbers come in hotter than expected and bam, they smack the heck out of it. Well, that's, if you've been around this market long enough, something to be expected, especially pushing gold down below a psychological level of 2,000. But this doesn't change anything, and nor does the fact that we keep seeing record withdrawals off of the exchanges and deliveries off the exchanges and central bank acquisition. So, yeah, it's frustrating, but I think ultimately these are the reasons why you're seeing countries like China purchase for 14 straight months. And, I have a feeling that there will come a time when a country like China, who, if you listen to Alistair McLeod, will tell you 40,000 metric tons. Some other people are a little bit less than that. Certainly not the 20-some hundred tons that they tell us, but 8, 10, 12, 15, 20 times what they say that we have. If you look at the amount of production and the amount of importing and what they already had, it's pretty easy to say that they have way more than we do as a country, way more than the 8,100 metric tons we're supposed to have that hasn't been audited. But I have a feeling there will come a time before the music stops where they revalue gold. And they will do the same thing that Roosevelt did. And they will revalue gold, and they will end up having a very strong currency backed by gold, just like the finance minister from the Dutch financial minister said we should do it too. We should revalue our gold. And isn't it ironic that if you look at the balance sheets of all the central banks, gold is held in an account called the gold revaluation account. That's the name of it on their balance sheet. So if they want to get their assets in line with their balance sheet liabilities, if they want to reliquify their economy, one that is having problems with the real estate market and with the stock market in China, if they really do hold as much gold as our buddy Alistair says, who I have nothing but the utmost respect for, revalue gold and watch what happens. And look what they're slowly doing right now, turning up the heat on arbitrage. Silver's $1.50 higher. Gold is $70-80 higher right now in Shanghai. Siphon slowly. Don't let them know what you're doing. The frog in boiling water. But just like inflation, when I was a kid in high school, price of a hamburger then to the price of a hamburger now, slowly turn it up. And let the arbitrage, those sophisticated traders that can access the COMEX, the LBMA, and the Shanghai Exchange, sell all of our gold and silver in the West to the Chinese, and bang, they'll revalue it. And they'll revalue it to a level that will immediately change the narrative. And, of course, with the BRICS meeting coming in October, don't be surprised to see, this kind of talk start to heat up. Now, is it going to happen in October? I don't know. The mistake a lot of people make is saying it's going to happen in October. And that's what James Rickards did. And I was fortunate enough to have, a couple drinks with him in July before the meeting happened in August. And, what he said is going to happen. The Shanghai Cooperation Organization, the Eurasian Economic Union will join the BRICS, and they will issue a commodity-backed currency. But to say when is a mistake. But I do believe that these things indeed logically will happen. It's a logical progression. And when you see all of these BRICS countries, look at, country like Turkey, who has now just formally applied to BRICS, has massively accumulated silver recently, massively. Let me see if I can find the number here real quick. I think I can. I wrote it down. The number that they have accumulated, imported in 2023 was almost 1,200 tons of silver. And, and in 2022, about 800 tons. And if you go back before that, nowhere near. So you have countries that are leaving the Western system. They were just told that you're not going to join the European Union anytime soon. And so they formally applied to BRICS. Well, they're buying gold, they're buying silver. They're doing, a year ago, before they had to sell some of their gold to finance to help get inflation under control, they were buying more gold than anyone in the world too. So these nations, I think, see the big picture, and the people in this country who are being lied to by the the Bureau of Labor Statistics, who are not letting us see what's really happening, are falling right into the hand of these countries that are de-dollarizing. So not to go off on a tangent, as I have a bad habit of doing on your show, but I just think put these things together, look at each one of these pieces and see how they fit into a growing puzzle. And you'll see a picture that starts to take shape very rapidly. And I think it's going to take shape faster and faster and faster as we get closer to the final October big meeting in Russia.
Yeah, and it's not going unannounced. It's just couched sometimes when it comes from the mouths of high people in high official positions. Jamie Dimon, the head of the largest bank, JPMorgan, says the U.S. economy is heading towards a cliff and predicts a global rebellion. Says it's a hockey stick, Dimon said, describing how the debt growth would appear on a chart. When it starts, markets around the world, by the way, because foreigners own $7 trillion in U.S. government debt, there will be a rebellion, and that's the worst possible way to do it. It's a cliff, and we're going 60 miles an hour towards it. So it's not lost on those. That's one of the things that came through, I think, on the Putin-Tucker Carlson interview also, was the practicality, the pragmatism of Putin, the way that he looked at things. He says, the whole world is looking at this. We all use reason. We use rational, reasonable ways of looking at things. And if you look at this reasonably, this is a problem. And that's where you and I, again, our motivation is to get the word out to those who haven't heard that. So anyway, we're going to put the link to a couple of these articles about Jamie Dimon's warning about the upcoming cliff and how we're rushing towards it. But for those who want to protect some of their assets out of the banks and out of the credit markets and so on, and basically, as Gregory Mannarino says, bet against the debt by stepping outside the system. And our preparedness-minded folks have been doing that for over a decade here. How can they take advantage of specials that you have this week to help do that at affordable costs?
Everything is on sale. I keep saying that. It is. It's all on sale. Yeah, we have backdate Silver Philharmonics at $315 over spot, and $10 and $20 Liberties and XF grade at $99 over spot on the 10s and $145 on the 20s. Sure, there's special prices, but everything is on sale right now, and everything is in great supply. It's never been better. And this is the ironic thing of all of it. At the same time, we see so many distortions around the world and the big smart money accumulating it and possessing it and, bringing it home from the hubs, like the LBMA and the New York Fed, the COMEX. These are situations where the big money is front running, and yet the retail public is asleep. So yes, there are more specials this week. The $315 over on the backdate Philharmonics, great price. And as are the gold coins, which are, by the way, my favorite way of owning gold, period. If I had my druthers, all I would own would be the $20 and $10 gold pieces. And it was that way for a very, very long time until premiums got out of control. And here we are again, where just like everything, premiums are much lower. But it's a good time then again. And I try to say this without sounding like this is the singular purpose of having these discussions. In fact, if I never mention gold and silver, call us to buy it, I'd be okay with that on every interview I do, because, I'm sure people know what I do. But it's important to me to not to talk about the what as much as the why, and the what ought to be self-evident. And it becomes much harder to speak of the why when everything in the mainstream, most of it goes against what we are saying. Yet, using revisionist history, it seems that much of the stuff that you and I have talked about for the last 3 years has come true. So I guess what is left to be seen is how it continues to play out. But I have a feeling we're on the right page. And for those people who are looking to protect themselves against the ultimate decline in the standard of living in this country and all of the perils that will go along with losing the petro status, you better buy some gold and silver, period. That's just the way that I can be as blunt as possible. If you buy it from Miles Franklin, wonderful. That's fantastic. If not, so that's just the way it goes. But it's important to realize that we are at that moment in time where the big money, I think, is now past the point of hiding what they're doing, at least the big money around the world. So not so much with our our BLS and our media, which are keeping the people in the dark. But take a step back and start reading some of the other foreign websites, foreign newspapers, and you'll see very quickly that this information is spreading like wildfire around the world, just not here in the U.S.
Yeah, and that's been going on for months and months. We've had African and national leaders calling people to take appropriate precautions and de-dollarize. You've had Putin and the BRICS talking about that. You've had others at very visible positions internationally telling people and countries and corporations to take cover. And they have been.
Well, and heck, even in places like Iowa, too, where last week you had a bill that was a Senate subcommittee recommended passage of a bill that would establish a state-issued gold or silver transactional currency. And by a bipartisan coalition, nonetheless, of 14 co-sponsors, introduced Senate Bill 2108 on January 24th. The proposed law would require the state treasurer to issue specie gold or silver coins and establish a transactional currency. And this is what we've been talking about. More and more and more of these states are waking up to what is happening to the dollar. And, I think this will happen more and more and more and more. And especially as you see bigger problems with the banks and all of the banking problems that we see. Heck, you even see Powell come out and said that there's going to be more merging and closing of some of the small banks. But the situation for the larger banks is manageable. He says, well, that's funny because it's the regional banks that hold 70% of all the commercial real estate and 70% of all the small business loans. These are this is where the problem is, not in the big banks that are too big to fail, but everywhere else. And these are the things that are going to wake people up. And luckily, some of these states are already waking up to it, where, they're going to be ahead of the curve, but the majority of the people in this country have not. So God bless states like Iowa and Idaho and Alaska and Wyoming and Kansas and Missouri and Oklahoma and Arkansas and, these states that are pushing back. So let's just hope that there are some people waking up and make our job a little bit easier going forward.
Yep, and we've interviewed Patrick Holland from the Missouri Freedom Initiative several times on our channel on that and the wording, specie wording, et cetera, may be because they've come up with a draft bill for Missouri that they've shared with all the other states, and there are activists in all the other states that are putting those forward through their legislators and bringing those, so that there are going to be more and more states rising up. We've certainly seen Texas having to rise up and protect its border. We've had other states like Texas rising up, as you just enumerated, to protect their people of their state's financial futures. And you don't have to wait for your state to do it. You can encourage your lawmakers in your state to do that, but you don't have to wait for that. You can do it immediately. So if you don't want to miss a single episode with Andy, everyone, make sure that you do sign up for our free newsletter. Just go to libertyandfinance.com and put in your email address, click submit. You'll get a confirming email. Once you confirm, you won't miss a single interview with Andy or any of our other guests, and you'll get every single weekly market update and every single weekly special from Andy that way as well. But only one email in your inbox from us every day, and we don't give your email address to anyone. Well, Andy, I know we kept you over because I think we had a little bit of philosophizing to do at the beginning, but thank you very much, as always, for joining us here.
It's always great to spend some time with you, Dunnigan, and hopefully one of these days in person, being that we are in the same state. And heck, way back when the Great Pyramids of Giza were built, they dragged 2 to 20 ton blocks of stone the whole length of the state of Florida. At least we're supposed to believe that, because that's where the quarries were, 500 miles away. So they can do that carrying blocks of stone. You and I can get together driving to meet one another one of these days in person. But until then, I always look forward to seeing you here on Tuesdays, and next Tuesday will be no different.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Andy, for joining us, and we'll see you again next time here on Liberty and Finance.
Take care, my friend.
This is Kaiser Johnson with Liberty and Finance, and these are the Miles Franklin Weekly Specials for February 12th through February 19th, 2024, while supplies last. First, we feature backdated 1-ounce Silver Philharmonics at $3.15 over spot with a minimum order of 50. We also have pre-1933 gold $10 and $20 Liberties at $99 over melt and $145 over melt, respectively. To order our specials or any of the many other options we have available, call us at 1-888-81-LIBERTY. That's 1-888-815-4237. We're available after hours and on weekends, and we look forward to speaking with you.